Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated April 2nd, 2023. In this video, we are going to talk about three important newspaper articles which are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. We are going to have a detailed examination of these particular articles, and that is why you need to watch this video till the end to get all the insights regarding these important newspaper articles which were present in April 2nd, 2023, the Hindu newspaper. So now the first important newspaper articles which we are going to talk about is this particular newspaper article which came in the first page itself. Now this talks about the a site or a historic site or archaeological site which is known as Pattanam. Pattanam basically is a village in Kerala, and this has unearthed some of the artifacts, some of the civilization of that particular period, like period from 100 BC to AD 300. So this article becomes very important in order to understand the Indian culture, art forms, literature and architecture from ancient to modern times, right? And this article becomes important for the GS paper 1. Let's first understand the context of it, and then we will talk about what is the importance of this particular site in Pattanam village of Ernakulam district of Kerala. So now the serene village of Pattanam in central Kerala lies the only multicultural archaeological site on the southwestern coast of the Indian subcontinent. Now the most important point over here is that it is a multicultural archaeological site, which means that a lot of cultures were present in this particular historical site in the ancient times. And it is often referred to as the first emporium of Indian Ocean, Muziris, of which Pattanam is part, and is an example of Greco-Roman classical age, right? It is not of the Indian culture, but it is of the Greco-Roman classic age, right? It is somewhat near it, and it shows that the direct connection of the South Indian civilization with that of the Greco-Roman civilization, right? And this is why this particular site is very important, because it shows the connection between the South Indian civilization and the Greco-Roman culture. Now, if we talk about the Pattanam, this particular village is located in Kerala in the Ernakulam district, right? And over here near the Thrissur it is located, right? So this is the particular location of this particular village, and it has some of the major findings. Though we have unearthed only the 1% of the site, but there are some of the findings that have been found out. Now, the first thing is that there is no evidence that institutionalized religion existed in the ancient Pattanam. The religion was not enforced upon people. People had various kinds of religion, and no indication of graded inequality embodied in the caste system that has characterized contemporary Kerala and most of the rest India is not present over there, right? There is no evidence of the caste system. Now, apart from it, the technological, metallurgical, literary, and artistic advances of this phase bear witness to rigorous cultural and commercial exchanges. There are commercial exchanges which have been found out with of the South Indian civilization with that of the Greco-Roman civilization. Now, the Pattanam excavation have unearthed over 45 lakh shards, that is ceramic fragments, and these include approximately 1.4 lakh belonging to the littoral regions of the Mediterranean, River Nile, the Red Sea, the Western and Eastern Indian Oceans, and South China Sea, which also points out towards the fact that the Greco-Roman civilization also basically existed in the South India as well, or the South Indians did have connection with all of these people, Greco-Roman people as well as the South China people, right? Now the recent findings include the seal of a Sphinx native to the ancient Greek city of Thebes. And if we talk about the time period of this particular civilization which is present in South India, then it spans from 5th century BC till the 5th century AD, and there was a thriving urban culture with connections with all the rest of the world, and its peak phase was around 100 BC to AD 300, right? So this is basically the time period of this particular civilization. So what are the things that did not emerge from the Pattanam? The first thing first is that there is no evidence of any kind of idol worship. And the Iron Age and the post-Iron Age are also bereft of the sophisticated weaponry. We did not find any kind of sophisticated weaponry, though we have unearthed only the 1% of this particular site, but we did not find any kind of weapons of the Iron Age and the post-Iron Age. And this particular thing is in sharp contrast with the Pattanam contemporary sites such as Berenike in Egypt and Khor Rori in Oman. In these particular region, Berenike and Khor Rori, there are some kind of Iron Age tools present, but in the Pattanam village, we did not find any kind of these tools, right? Though further findings can be there, and but we do not have at this particular point of time any kind of evidence of it. So the question arises that did they have no religion and caste? So basically the apparent absence of religious and martial remains can only tell us that religion and war did not exist as they are known today, though they may have existed in their own forms. Now it is safe to say that there is no evidence of institutionalized religion or caste. So now what about the death rituals they did follow? So the Pattanam people did follow some kind of rituals, right? So the grave remains at the Pattanam site were confined to fragmentary skeleton remains, which means that the dead were cremated or burnt and then they were buried later, right, because of the findings of the fragmentary skeleton remains. And the large terracotta urn burials and a wide range of stone monuments abound in the Peria Delta and Basin regions, showing the ceremonious nature of the later burial practices. And no artifact were found which indicate any kind of religious custom, right? So where did these people belong to? Where did they come from? So the genotype results and the ancestry analysis of samples pointed to South Asian, West Asian and Mediterranean lineages, which means that the people did reside in this particular region from various backgrounds, from various regions. And K.V. Balasubramaniam and Vedahi Herbert, researchers focusing on Sangam era literature, connected this observation with the evidence from the Sangam sources to point out that people of the time were secular in every aspect of their highly sophisticated and the pluralistic society, in contrast to other societies where religion was very, very important. But in this particular region of Pattanam village in Kerala, there is no evidence of any kind of religion being practiced or any kind of idol worship, which means that people were very secular. They were very welcoming to the people from every other religion. So were these people very close to nature? Because they were not close to any kind of idol worship, did they have any kind of relation to the nature? Now the material evidence from the site strengthens the belief that Pattanam society may have lived in harmony with nature like several indigenous societies did and not viewed people as separate from the nature, and this had positive fallout of living life in ecologically responsible manner. So these people were very close to the nature like the tribal people, like the indigenous societies, right? If you do not have any kind of idol worship in any of the civilization, it means that they are very close to the nature, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. This particular newspaper article covered the area of Pattanam village, which is basically a civilization which was set up between the 5th century BC to 5th century AD, right? So this becomes very important for the history section. And ancient India, some of the questions may arise in the prelims regarding this, and in the mains it can also be expected, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now this particular newspaper article talks about the India and Malaysia relations and how they are getting better in terms of the economy, because now the payments can be made in terms of rupees as opposed to the other framework or the earlier framework of the dollar exchange, right? Now this kind of newspaper article becomes important for the GS paper 3, that is Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment. First, let's understand the context of it, and then we will talk about the major pointers in it and how the relations between India and Malaysia are going to get more robust and better. Now, India and Malaysia have agreed to settle trade in Indian rupees, says the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of External Affairs on Saturday. Now, what is the shift? There is a shift away from the US dollar, which has been dominant reserve currency for international trade so far, and now it is being replaced with the rupee transaction. So there is a de-dollarization of the international trade in terms of dollars, and the Union Bank of India has become the first bank in India to operationalize this option by opening a special Vostro account through its corresponding bank in Malaysia, that is India International Bank of Malaysia. Now the Union Bank of India is going to open a special rupee Vostro account, which will basically facilitate the traders to trade in the rupee instead of the earlier framework of them converting this into the dollar and then conducting the trade. Now, trade between India and Malaysia can now be settled in Indian rupee in addition to the current modes of settlement in other currencies. In other currencies also it can be done, but rupee will be the main leader in this particular regard. So why exactly the de-dollarization is happening on around the world? So trading in the US dollar has faced growing difficulties, especially after the Russian economy was sanctioned by the Western powers, and India was not able to trade with Russia. Russia was not able to trade with any of the country, and this led to some of the problem. Now India came with a solution with an alternate payment mechanism. So now the alternate payment mechanism in terms of rupees is more stable, and the currency exchange can happen in the rupees itself instead of now the dollars. And that is where the de-dollarization is happening, because the trade in terms of the dollars has become difficult. Now, if we talk about the India and Malaysia relations, then they have the bilateral trade, which touched around $19.4 billion in 2021 to 2022, and with the Saturday's announcement, it is going to basically increase. And Malaysia is also the third largest trading partner of India in the Asian region after the Singapore and Indonesia. But it is way behind it because Singapore has $30.1 billion of bilateral trade, and Indonesia has $26.1 billion of bilateral trade. But Malaysia has just $19.4 billion of trade with India, which is expected to increase with this particular setting up of Vostro accounts. Now, what exactly is this Vostro account? So Vostro account basically is an account that domestic banks hold for foreign banks in farmers' domestic currency, in this case the rupee. So in this case, the foreign traders and Indian traders as well Indian traders can set up a Vostro account in the Union Bank of India, and in Union Bank of India will be responsible for paying the foreign players in this particular regard. So domestic banks use it to provide international banking services to their clients who have global banking needs, right? For example, if Mr. Ambani has to now pay to Malaysia to any of the clients, he can basically set up a Vostro account in the Union Bank of India, and Union Bank of India will transfer this particular money to the foreign player, right? Instead of doing it in the terms of the dollars, now we will do it in the rupees. So an account that the domestic banks hold for the foreign banks in the former's domestic currency, in the case of the rupee, and the domestic banks use it to provide international banking services to their clients who have global banking needs, and the existing systems require maintaining balances and positions in such currencies like US dollar and pound to facilitate the trade. Now we will do it basically in the rupee terms. Now there are three components in it: invoicing, exchange rate, and the final settlement, which will be basically responsible for doing any kind of trade, right? So if we talk about the functioning of it, then the domestic dealers, domestic importers, as well as the domestic exporters are going to get benefited from this particular framework, right? If we talk about the previous year's questions, then there was a question regarding the convertibility of rupee and what does it imply. And in this particular case, it implies that it freely permits the conversion of rupee to other currencies and vice versa. So the option C was right over here, and this basically means that this particular statement basically implies the convertibility of rupee, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. This becomes very important for the prelim section, and that is why you need to go through this particular account. This is known as Vostro account. Read it in detail, and we have also explained it, right? If If you have any doubts, please do mention in the comment section regarding the Vostro account, right? Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article talks about the Pashmina shawls and some of the problems it poses, or there is poor testing in this regard. Now, we are not concerned about the poor testing problem. What we are concerned about is the fact that Pashmina shawls are GI tag, right? It has a geographical indication tag, and that is why it becomes very important for us to know regarding the Pashmina shawls. So Pashmina shawls are basically produced by two techniques, and Pashmina is basically a wool which comes from Pashmina, right? Now, a special kind of goat, right? Now the shawls are produced by two techniques, that is the loom woven or khani shawls and the needle embroidered or sojni shawls. Now the sojni shawls, which are needle embroidered, which are made with hand, are more important and they are more expensive, and the less expensive are the loom woven, right? So now basically there are three kinds of fabrics: Shahtush, Pashmina and Rafal. Now the Shahtush comes from, or which is known as the king of wool, passes through a ring and is also known as the ring shawl, and it comes from the rare Tibetan antelope. Now Pashmina comes from the Kashmir wool, and it comes from a special goat, Capra hicris, which lives at an altitude of 12,000 to 14,000 feet. And Rafal is basically a spun out of merino wool tapes and a popular, and it is also a popular type of shawl, right? Now Pashmina shawls have got the GI tag, which is geographical indication tag. And what does that mean? So basically, geographical indication tag is given, or it is used to identify goods having a special characteristic originating from a definite geographical territory. For example, the Pashmina shawls come from the Kashmir area, right, of the Jammu and Kashmir territory, Union Territory, and that is why they have been given the geographical indication tag. Now it is used for agriculture, natural and manufactured resources. Now the GI indication tag comes under the Geographical Indication of Goods Registration and Protection Act 1999, and it seeks to provide for the registration and better protection of geographical indications relating to goods in India. And this particular organization is also part of the World Trade Organization, that is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, right? So this is it regarding the geographical indication tag. Now it is basically monitored by the Controller General of Patents, Design and Trademarks, and the headquarters of the Geographical Indications Registry is located in Chennai. And if we talk about the validity of the registration, this Pashmina shawl gets a validity period of 10 years. They will remain registered for 10 years, and they can be renewed from time to time for a further period of 10 years each, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. This is it regarding the Pashmina shawls, and this is it for the day. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.